On a recent travel, I had a phase. I was by myself, and I had a phase where I went through a little bit a difficult time internally, and where a lot of stuff came up. In fact, I also went on this trip a little bit in order to face little hidden shadow sides and to make space for that to come up. And then I just didn't move and just allowed it to come up, because I had space for it, and I just allowed everything to show up as it is. And I wouldn't say it felt nice, but it was clear for me that now it's the time to be here for all these things that show up. Because I made time for that, so now it's coming. So to be here, and I just didn't move an inch. I didn't go running. I didn't go, away. I didn't move away, and I just allowed it to come. And the things that showed up were topics around shame, topics around, shame in a way where I still held some judgment around situations or people. Shame about things that happened in the past. And I just allowed it to come up. And then after that, I realized, okay, now it's time to own my shit and to speak it out. So I really went to see a friend, and we just had some open listening sessions where I could just speak these things out. And it was so relieving, to just really own the things that were still stuck in the system. It almost felt like clearing the nadis, clearing the energy channels or the meridians in the body, to really clear it out. Or clearing the psyche out and the shadows, to put it on the table and say, hey, this is what I'm still holding inside, and I'm ashamed of it. And what this did to me, and still does to me, is that it really freed these demons that were sitting inside and holding these things together. It really freed a lot internally, so that now these topics which were coming up, I'm really feeling free about those. And even some contexts established themselves again, where when I owned things, the energy channels towards these people are free again, and they got in contact with me again. So it's really interesting to just observe that. And I'm really happy about what happened internally, because we could also say, if you are interested in getting more awake, this is the work that we have to do. The awakenings that you might have on the spiritual path, this is one thing. Then you have a true recognition of who you are. But then the integration into full humanness is just following. And this kind of, I feel, is demanded from this one, to really face and really make space for these hidden dark corners that are still not in the light. And the effect was so big for this one. So so much more light and fluidity and love and peace is streaming out of this one since that I really wish that for you to happen too. And in a way, I wish that for the world to happen as well. And I was reflecting a little bit, what's going on in the world now. And the big governors of big countries, you know, the decisions they take, how would it be if they could own their shit as well? Like, you know, if somebody, if a government is deciding, okay, we're going to go to war, it might be difficult to say, okay, we made a mistake, and I think we have to retreat, and we have to own that, okay, maybe it wasn't right, or it can be another decision. But often what we see when governments go into a certain direction, they somehow, we say, they can't go back because they would ridicule themselves. But maybe we have to be ready to ridicule ourselves, to really have a good laugh and say, okay, maybe I went a little bit over the top here. Maybe I did the wrong decision. I'm sorry. You know, this doesn't happen so much in the politics, that you really go and say, I'm sorry, I think this was really wrong. And I feel in this time, we really realize now that we're not this separate entity as human beings, but also as countries. We're not these separate countries and we don't care what the rest thinks and how they act, but we actually realize once again that we're really interconnected, very much interconnected. I mean, we breathe the same air. Lately, we had this big sandstorm from Morocco, and it went all the way up to Spain, to Switzerland, and even up to Sweden. We all had brown snow and sand, brown sand on the cars. So to just realize, wow, the air is the same air. So whatever we put in this air, we're going to have the same consequences. Whatever weapons are used, we're going to have similar consequences if we use, you know, that kind of weapons. And on the other side, also to realize that the energy supplies, if one country closes off, we have to reorganize ourselves with other countries. So basically, we have to learn how to speak to other countries, which we excluded before. So watching this with a little bit of distance, I find this really interesting to see, okay, now all of a sudden the countries realize, we are really interdependent, and we have to communicate and find ways how we can support each other rather than fight against each other. And in a way, behind all that is a big chance, in my view, that we really realize we are one. We are really an interconnected organism. And if we don't take care of this interconnected organism, we're going to harm ourselves in the end. And the earth is in itself also an organism, also connected to us. A lot of people don't feel that anymore, but you can feel really the aliveness of the earth. And then also feel that, yeah, if we don't cooperate with this earth, you know, maybe we'll not make it as a race to survive. So to really realize this interconnectedness is a joyful thing. It's not a scary thing. It's, in a way, the wake-up call that lies behind all the crises. That we can, in every crisis, also without a crisis, but in every crisis, we have the chance as a collective to make a human leap, to make a quantum leap into a more conscious way of coexistence. And to break it down, if you're coming back to yourself, My feeling is to own your shit, to put your stuff on the table, and to be willing to do that and make space for that is a big part of it. Because all the things that you hold inside, all the bad feelings, the judgments that you hold inside, this is not just your inside, but this is also kind of a little pollution in the world. And we could say the more you expose that, the more free you get and the more peace and love you can really spread out into the world. And of course, it needs some courage or some readiness to make yourself very vulnerable. But vulnerable, I don't mean vulnerable in a sense that this is weakness, but more that you're ready to feel the really hidden corners of yourself, the really shabby, bit awkward feelings, and to be honest about that and say, okay, I've been holding this, and I think I should say sorry to this person. And maybe I'm just from now on, I'm just trying to the best of my ability to not buy into too much judgments anymore. But not to, on the other hand, making too many plans about the future, but just to clean out your vehicle. And this could be a great share to the peace in this world. If we as a human race get more ready to say, okay, this is what I'm still holding, and I'm owning that, and I'm sorry about that. I couldn't do better. I'm ashamed of that. And if we can all be a little bit ashamed and hold each other's hands and say, okay, we're all maybe ashamed of some things, and then say, great. Shame is also a valid feeling, and we're just sharing ourselves and getting really, really honest with ourselves. So thank you all for listening, and I wish you peace and happiness at the heart, and give that peace and happiness to the people next to you that you're holding hands with. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.